So, how do we navigate our true friends? We have this assumption that throughout our lives, we have to have so many friends throughout our life, and we have to be friends with people that we were maybe friends with, and we can't ever end our relationship with different people, or maybe sometimes they end just because we lost interest and we just sort of distance ourselves from different people. And what we have to realize is that there's certain ways that we can be friendlier with people and have more friends in our lives, and certain times that, like, what, maybe it's not necessarily so true. Is it amazing to have a million friends? Like, maybe, but maybe it's like better to have like two really good friends. And I think if we could start to really understand what it is that we're going to be doing and how it is we're going to be doing it, I think it could be really important. And I think to start, I think there's a big difference between friends and acquaintances. You see, I believe a friend is what you're probably thinking about in terms of somebody who you're close with, somebody who you might call, you might text, you might speak to, even if it's not every single day. But there's somebody who's in the forefront of your mind, and you've done certain things with them in the past, and you spent the time with them and whatnot. An acquaintance, though, might be somebody who's like sort of like a coworker. Those people that you're friends with in the situation, but once you leave that situation, you're not like hanging out afterwards. And it's interesting because I think that's totally fine. And I think so many people don't realize that you actually have the ability to have different relationships with different people. Just how you have a different relationship with your spouse than you do with your parents, hopefully, or with your siblings, or with certain people in your life. We can have different types of friends in our life, and I think that's totally fine. And I think it's actually probably pretty healthy. And I think one of the biggest things about just having friends or just people to be able to hang out with is, I think it's just really good to get out and really just speak to people and just to socialize. Socializing, I think, is something that is really important. I know nowadays, with social media and phones and whatnot, it's so hard in schools, because I speak to a bunch of people who are in administration. And when I was an administrator in high school, it was something that was really difficult. And one of the things that we did that was I thought was so important for our students was that we made them check their phones in the beginning of the day. And it was like very political with the parents and the kids themselves. I wanted to have their phones, and let's say there's an emergency and all this good stuff. And we thought through everything, and we came up with different plans and whatnot. But I think understanding that the fact that you can socialize and have a skill of socializing, especially nowadays, is something that is so important. So regardless of whether you have really great friends, or whether you think you have really good friends and then they're not really good friends, we have to understand that there are certain positives with having people in our life that we could just go to, we could speak to. Maybe we're meeting up with them we're in a specific location in their house, our house, we're going out to eat with them, or maybe we're just meeting them at a local, I don't know, restaurant or something, because that's where everybody hangs out and whatnot. And I think if we could start to understand that, I think it could be really beneficial. I recently went on a walk with a good friend of mine, and it was one of the first times I think I ever went on a walk with a friend, not my wife. And we talked about the difference between a wife and a friend, and should they be your best friend, should they not be your best friend? But I went on a walk with a good friend of mine. We went on a walk, an hour walking. There's a trail by us in Philly that we went. It's not really a trail; it's already paved. We got a lot of runners and bikers on the path. But it was interesting because I was like, I don't really do this with other friends, and it was something that was really powerful to me. We had a great conversation, very enlightening. If you were, listen to the episode yesterday, we spoke about like the aha moment. That I had on that talk. And it was something that was really, really powerful to me. And I was so grateful afterwards that I had a friend like that I was able to be in touch with somebody, say, hey, I know you go on walks. Any chance I could, hop on and join you on your walk? And he's like, yeah, sure, I would love to. And we just, had a great time, great conversation, great insight. And just knowing, I think one of the biggest things with friends is just knowing how we can have that support. Knowing that there are people behind us who are rooting for us, people behind us who are actually looking for our own best interest. And I think it's something that I was recently speaking to a student of mine, and I was asking about how is he doing socially in school. And he told me that there are a couple of kids in his grades who are just like, he's not fans of. He does not want to have anything to do with. He is not interested, and they're the cooler group and whatnot. And I asked him, well, do you have any other friends? He's like, yeah, I have a group of other friends that I'm very happy with. And I was so grateful for him that he was able to do that. And I think sometimes we have this pressure, especially the younger we are, but I think even as we get older, that we have to be part of certain social groups, that we have to be associated with a certain type of, style, or, I think a lot of it comes down, as we get older, to economic. It comes down to, just our finances, like, oh, we want to be we want to have a certain status. And I think it's ridiculous. And I think people end up putting themselves in a place where they're not really that type of person. And Sometimes I think people will like to explore. So like if you have the people who may be a little bit quieter when they were younger, and as they get older, they build more confidence, and then they can start to speak, and they start becoming out more outgoing, and then they end up dressing differently, and they get like a haircut, and they get contacts instead of their glasses, and they get their braces off, and then all of a sudden you're like, who the heck are you? And I'm sure we all know people like that. And for certain people, like we're so grateful. I know certain people like that, and they're probably so happy that they were able to like come out of their shell a little bit and like be who they truly are. And then on the other hand, you have those people who do that, but then like they're just like, come on, like you're trying too hard. Like you don't have to. Like people like you don't have to be so forceful, or you don't have to put yourself out there too much. Like it seems like you're just trying to get everybody to like you. And there's not a wrong or a right. And I think different people have different things that they want to be doing. But if we didn't have any fears holding us back, what would we be doing socially? How would we be going out? And I'm going to answer a couple of questions that certain people asked at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to put them down in the chat below. But what's interesting is that we all have the ability to surround ourselves with the people that we want. It's harder when we're kids because it's usually more just our community or the camps that we go to, that's who we're surrounded by. But if we can start to understand ourselves and start to ask, hey, you know what? Who is it that I want to be friends with? What's the type of person I want to be friends with? What is my ideal friend? What are they striving for? What are they looking to do? What are they looking to grow? Where are they looking to go in their life? And I think we all have those friends who constantly focus on the past. We're constantly thinking about, the good old days. And it's sad, but like those friends are probably not going to be the ones who are going to help you excel and succeed in your life. Doesn't mean we got to get rid of them. Doesn't mean you can't speak to them and can't be friends with them. But I think really just to understand who are the people that are going to help us move forward. Because I think as we grow up, we see that there are a lot of different people. There are people out there who are very satisfied with their lives, or maybe they're, like they love complaining about their lives, or they just love, the good old days. And if we can start to say to ourselves, well, do I want somebody who's constantly focused on the past, or somebody who's constantly focused on growing in the future? Like, where do I want to be? And everyone's got to figure it out for themselves, and everyone's got to find out what direction they want to be focusing on. But I think if you're listening to this, if you're this type of person who's into this type of stuff, you're probably more forward focused. You're thinking about the next stage of how I can get better, what I can do differently to increase my health, my wealth, my happiness, my relationships. And if we can start to do that, then I think we can really start to try to see who it is that we could be friends with. And, I always, I wrote about this in my book, and Jim Rohn made the idea famous, where you need to surround yourself with, the five people. You're the average of the five people around you. And if we could start to surround ourselves with those people, it doesn't mean we can't have a sixth person. It's just who's the five closest people. Then all of a sudden we can we're going to be influenced by those people, because guess what? We're going to be influenced regardless about the people around us. So when the people are negative, like you're probably gonna be more negative. The people are heavier, you're probably gonna be more heavier. The people are wealthier, you're gonna probably be wealthier. Like it's just the way it works. And if we can start to say, hey, who's the type of person that I want to be around? So their vibe and their energy can flow into my life as well, and then I could start to do things. Then all of a sudden you start to live a certain life that you want. And it's important, because I think so many times people get so stuck in terms of the relationships that they have and that they're in, just because they never thought about it, or because the relationships just fell out of default. Like it just happened to be like, oh, we ended up going to the same school and then college, and then all of a sudden, like we've been together for 8 years, so it must be that we're good friends. And then all of a sudden somebody has like, wait a second, I don't know if like we really work so much. And I think it's something that's really important that people need to ask themselves, even with the friends that they have around them. Is everybody around you the person that you want around you? Are the people that you're closest with the closest that you want to have around you? And I think if we can start to ask ourselves these questions and really just get curious about it, then all of a sudden we can start to shift so much in our personal lives. Because so many of us have such a desire to be having better friendships, to be having better relationships, to have, to have somebody who's really there, who's into the stuff that we're into, who's on the same path and the same trajectory in terms of what it is that we're doing. And then all of a sudden we can start to do those things. And I think when it comes to friendship, I think there's 3 different ways to become friends with somebody. Maybe there's more, so if you have many more, feel free to let me know. I'd love to be able to add it to the list. But there's 3 types of friends that people have. They have your friends who you just are friends just because you spent just so much time with them. And this is like one of the things that happens, I think, with childhood friends, because you have play dates together, you're in school together, and like you're in school for 10, 15 years together, and all of a sudden you're just friends just because you've been spending so much time together, and you sort of morph into one another in terms of the friends that you have. The second idea of friends, I think, is the type of friend that you become because you have such like a deep and open and honest relationship with them. I think this is what happens when people start dating if they're looking to get married, and then all of a sudden, the type of friendship that you're having with that type of person, not maybe not at the beginning, but as the relationship grows, is a really serious one. You talk about real things. You're talking about things that you might not be telling everybody else. You might be more vulnerable to the fact that you're saying certain ideas and sharing things that maybe nobody else knows with that person. But because you have such a depth with that person, you end up growing in the relationship. And that could be something that could be so, so powerful. And the last and final way I think you really become friends with somebody is you go through certain experiences with them. It could be positive or negative. So you can, on the one hand, you could have a team that ends up winning a championship together, and then all of a sudden they love each other, and they're just bonded by the experience that they had going through the ups and the downs to get there. Or you have a team that loses a championship together, and they're also sort of bonded in a way, maybe not for the best way, but at the end of the day, like, they can be close because they have that experience. And I think if you can understand that, and if you could try to figure out, hey, you know what, so what do I have right now? What is it that I can do in order to allow myself to take it to the next level? And one of the questions I got was, how do you grow relationships with everybody if everybody's so busy nowadays? And it's really a great question. And I think if we could start to think about the three different possible ways about creating relationships, so what is it that we can start to do? So do we have the time? So apparently nobody has the time. So if you don't have the time, so that's probably not the way you're going to be able to create a really good relationship with somebody. So the next thing you could do is you could try to have a deeper relationship. It's whenever you are hanging out, even though you don't have a lot of time, it's a meaningful time. You're adding a lot of value to the relationship. You're having a conversation with them, and it's not just about like, hey, what TV show did you watch? It's like, how are you? How are things? How is your family? Like, what are you striving for? What are you growing for? And you're really connecting on a deep level. Or maybe you set up an experience. It could be something big, or it could be something like just small. Maybe you go to a Broadway show, or you go, check out something together. You go check out an art museum, and you create an experience with somebody. I was so inspired by my wife, because there are a few people in my community at my age, I think my age, yeah, who wanted to like do crafts. And my wife and two of her friends decided, you know what, we're just going to have a rotation, and once a week we're going to hang out together and just do crafts together. And there are other people who are like, oh, we want to get in and this and that. And it's like, they don't want to make it too big. They don't want to make it like a big event. But my wife has like some friends that she knows that she could go do, and they could do art, they could do sewing, they could do crocheting, they could do, I don't know, whatever they do, But regardless, it's just a time of the week that somebody set up, and then they just meet and they just come. So if you're trying to say like, how can I have more relationships? How can I have deeper relationships? So number one is like, be the one to start that type of relationship, start that experience, to allow yourself to see what else that you can do in order to just increase that time and increase that depth. And if you can build it around an experience, that's really going to help solidify it. So that person will be your person when X, Y, and Z. And I really think you could also have friends in different areas of your life. I know for me personally, I have different friends that I go to for different things. Some of them I speak to more often. Some of them I don't speak to for a couple of months at a time. But like, we know, like, we're good. We got each other's backs. And I think one of the things that we need to ask, and when we're trying to debate about our friends in general, and we're trying to think, are the friends that we have the people that, are they really good friends, or are they not really good friends? I would ask yourself this question: do you feel more confident? Are you better off knowing that this person's in your corner? Or is it more of a weight on your back that this person's in your corner? And I'll tell you, there's one guy in my community who I ended up becoming really close with over time. And I know that if I ever needed anything, like literally anything, if it was like, hey buddy, I need like $20,000, and he asked me like, why? I'm like, I'll tell you later. He'll be, yeah, sure, here, take it. And I know that if I needed to rely on somebody, he is the type of guy that I can rely on. And hopefully I don't ever have to use him for anything like that. But just knowing that I have a friend who's willing to do that is something that I look forward to in order to be able to do for other people. Because if I could be that person for somebody else, where somebody's like across the world and they know that whatever happens, I'll be there for them. I'll go out of my way. I'll make something happen. I think that is the type of person that, for me personally, is this type of person, the friend that I want to strive for. Because if we can have those people who are around us, who are helping us grow, who are more focused in terms of what we're focused on, and aren't just bringing us down with all the negativity and the complaining. And I've had friends like that, and it's been really tough. And I'm still friends with them, but just not in my close five. So if we could start to understand that, then all of a sudden we can start to figure out what it is that we need to be doing. And if you can be honest with a friend, or they can be honest with you, and you're not taking offense, you're not taking it personally. I know there's certain people that I've been very close with, and whenever they say something to me, I feel like they're judging me, they're saying something, and maybe it's me, and it probably is me. But on the other hand, that's the vibe that I'm getting, something has to change, something has to shift, outside within the relationship. And guess what? I think it's okay to say, I'm okay with it not changing. I'm okay with it not shifting. And if we can start to understand, hey, you know what? There are people out there, which is crazy, that there are people out there who want to be friends with us, who are like us. And we just need to keep searching for them and keep finding them. And maybe they're in your community, maybe they're not in your community, maybe they're online somewhere. But understanding like who are those people? And I think if we can start to find those people, and of course a relationship takes patience, it takes time. You have to be able to do whatever it is that you can do. I think, but understanding that it is going to be something that can be really, really important. Another question that somebody asked me was, what's your take on working with people that are your friends? So, classic, 18, 19, 20-year-old or 25-year-old has a best friend. And then also like, oh, we both love real estate. So we should go into real estate. We should go into business together. So I think, I think the general answer is like, don't do it. I think everybody says that because the relationship is more important than the business, than the job. And I think there's probably weight to that. And I'm sure there's been a lot of friendships that have been burnt and ruined by that. But I think at the end of the day, I think like, as long as the expectations are set, and asking yourselves also, like, is this worth our relationship? Like, and maybe it is, because maybe you can increase your relationship and you can increase your finances, right? But understanding that at a certain time, like, you're going to need to have an audit and understand, like, maybe this is not working out and we need to just split up. I was recently listening to a podcast by somebody, and he was telling me when he first started, going on social media, he ended up having a partner. And then after a couple of years, they both wanted to go different directions with the business. And they ended up having to split the business. They're still friends today. And it's amazing that I think that they're still friends. But it was interesting because one person decided like how to split the business, and the other person decided how, which aspect of the business that they wanted. And I thought that was very interesting because I don't think that's the norm, that like people like understand each other. Like, oh, we have both different things going on, or maybe somebody's going through something tragic, or somebody's starting to take advantage. I'm not even talking about the cases where somebody's gonna like mess you over on purpose. Maybe they might mess you up by accident, and then you think they did it on purpose, and that's a whole nother story. But I think understanding that if you could start to set your expectations the proper way, and maybe every couple of months touch and base, like, how are things going? How are you doing? And I think just like any relationship with a spouse, like, okay, you go into like life with your spouse, and then like, yeah, things are going to go wrong and things are going to happen. And as long as it's the type of person, maybe this is it. Like, maybe if it's the type of person that that through the tough times you could get through, and they would be willing to be able to work with you, then all of a sudden, whether it's working out or it's not working out, like, you'll be able to figure it out with that person. And I think certain people are not like that. And really just speaking about like, relationships with, a spouse, I think that's probably one of the most important things is like, is this person able to go through something tough, or go, or even have to hear something tough, but not take offense to it because they know it's for the sake, it's for their sake also. And I think that's something that can be really powerful when it comes to, working with friends. I think people would love to jump to the fact that, you shouldn't, and maybe you shouldn't, but I think if you can work it out in a way, and the expectations are clear, and they're the type of person who, during the tough times, because there are going to be tough times, even if you're by yourself, but even if you're somebody else, there are going to be tough times, then I think that could be something that could be really, really beneficial. So that's what I got on friends. If anybody has any specific questions on this topic, I think it's a big one. I think a lot of us all want more friends. All of us want to be more social, or maybe not, and we're totally good with our friends, and that's also totally fine. But I think understanding that can be something that can be really, really powerful when it comes to our own personal growth. Just having the people around us, having that support. It is important to get out. It is important to see people. And if you can start to include that into your lifestyle, it's going to be something that can be really beneficial. Hopefully you have people around you that you like. Hopefully you don't have people you don't like, but if you don't have those people, definitely keep searching for them, because they are out there. And just like you want to be their friend, they want you to be their friend.